Let's complete our theme options page by writing the sanitize function. And this is where the sanitize field from our arrays will be handy. We're going to use it to determine what kind of sanitization is required for that particular field. So we're going to get started by taking a look at our initialization function here. We'll see that the function we need for sanitization is called AP options validate. So we're going to copy that and we're gonna write it right here. Yeah. Function AP options validate, and actually this receives an input parameter. These are the values that are transmitted from the form. So we'll need to take these, run them through sanitization functions, and then return what's left. Now, let's start by defining a blank array for the output. This will be called output. Next, we're gonna parse through each of the fields that are transmitted from input, and we're gonna find what kind of sanitization they require. For each input, as we'll simply say key value, we'll grab the sanitize option for this field. So before we move on, let me actually show you how input looks like. So if I do a print R of the input, the moment we save this, this is how it's going to look like. So we're going to go through each one of these, we're going to grab its ID, and then we're going to cross-reference that ID in our multi-dimensional array, and we're going to get the sanitize value. And based on that, we'll apply or don't apply validation. We'll define a variable called field sanitize. That's going to be equal to AP get field sanitize key. Now, AP get field sanitize is a function that we have to write. Let's do that right now. This receives a key as a parameter, and then we're going to declare AP fields as global, so we have access to it from anywhere. And then we're going to return AP fields with the ID, and we'll grab the sanitize option. Now in here, depending on the value of field sanitize, we're going to execute different functions. So we're going to use a switch again. The criteria will be field sanitize. And the first one case is, or the first value is default. In the default, we're going to do two things. We're going to strip tags and we're going to do strip slashes. This is just some basic generic validation or sanitization actually. So we're going to say output key will be equal to strip tags, strip slashes, input key, and then break. Now if we take a look back to our array, the default sanitize option, let's see, where is it applied? It's applied to our custom CSS, for example, and that's pretty much it. The next one is full, so we're going to say case full, and I called it full. You can call it whatever you want. Basically, this should have pretty much every sanitization possible. So again, we're going to say output key equals to the same function or the same functions as we used here, but we're going to add an extra one called escape or ESC URL raw. And this will remove some extra bits from that string. Next, we have Google Analytics. Now, if we take a look at the field description here, this only accepts tracking ID in this format. And here's an example. Now, I chose to do this version instead of accepting the whole script from Google, because the whole script can be later written in code directly in your page. The only thing that separates Google Analytics scripts is this tracking ID. So really, this is the only thing that we want. But we do have to create a validation to make sure that the user enters only in this format. Let me actually indent these. Yeah, we're going to say case. This is called Google Analytics. And the code looks something like this. And then break. Basically, we're using regular expressions to check the input key against this pattern. If it matches, the output key gets the input key, which means the input key was correct. Otherwise, it gets blank. And finally, if we did not set a value for the sanitize field, then we're going to say default output key is going to be equal to input key, which basically means that we're not making any change. And then finally break. And after all of this is done, we'll simply return output. All right, so let's give this a try. Let's start with this Google Analytics. If I do a regular string like this, save changes, well, it actually gives me an error here, undefined variable, line 386. Okay, so let's see, 386. Maybe I forgot something here. Let's see, AP field, oh, not ID, I meant key, right here, sorry. Okay, let's try that again. Let's see, I entered the string, save, and it doesn't get saved. But if I enter this one, which is correct, by the way, I hit save, it saves. I add an S here for an incorrect string, it doesn't save it. So the sanitization here works just fine. Let's see some custom CSS. Let's see, body, color red. Now we can save that. That's fine. But if we want to get cute here and write some JavaScript functions, that's not going to work, right? And the same really goes for all of the other fields. And with this, we now have a functional theme options page. This was the last lesson of this course. Please join me in the next video for the conclusion.